Hi, my name's Tony DeWitt. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney and I try to answer questions here on YouTube. Someone has asked the question of whether or not Derek Chauvin, the Minneapolis police officer who is accused of murder, can get a fair trial. The answer to that question in just a moment. The question of whether or not Derek Chauvin can get a fair trial is a difficult one. Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, you could impanel a group of jurors who could put aside their biases and their preconceived notions and all of the information they've heard through the internet, through the media, and other sources, and decide the case solely on the basis of the evidence presented. But the question may be whether that's really likely. Now, unless you've been living in a cave in Afghanistan without a TV or radio, you know something about this case. You know that it involves George Floyd. You know that there were riots after the death of this man. And you know that his family misses him terribly, and they've suffered a tremendous loss. But you may also know that the city of Minneapolis paid $27 million to his family, which is a huge amount of money and which represents something more than an admission. Now, one of the things that goes into every settlement agreement is that neither party is suggesting that the settlement is an admission of liability. Nobody ever admits liability. But nobody pays $27 million for nothing either. And that's pretty important to remember. Nobody pays $27 million for nothing. But the city's determination that it may be liable for the conduct is different than the determination that Chauvin committed murder. And the reason that it's different is because the standard of proof is vastly different. In a civil trial, the only thing the plaintiff has to prove is that it is more likely than not likely. In other words, it's 51%, or if you like, 50.0001%. Something more than half. If it is something more than half, the plaintiff wins. So even though there could be evidence on the other side that pushes in the other direction, as long as there is just a little bit more, that means the civil plaintiff wins. That's the burden of proof, that's the burden of production, that's the standard that the jury is instructed in a civil case. But in a criminal case, the determination has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And beyond a reasonable doubt is a pretty strong burden for the prosecution. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is a reasonable doubt? A reasonable doubt is not some doubt. It's not a theoretical doubt. It's a reasonable basis to believe that no crime has been committed or that some other crime has been committed. That's the reason why juries get lesser included offenses and lesser included charges. In this particular case, the toxicology revealed that George Floyd, may God rest his soul, had a lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Fentanyl is a narcotic analgesic that is often known on the street as China White. It is like this very powerful form of heroin. And it will completely shut down a person's breathing. One of the reasons that patients who are recovered in the recovery room have a pulse oximeter on their finger to measure their oxygen saturation is because they sometimes stop breathing after the administration of a painkiller like fentanyl. Sometimes even Demerol will do that. This man had a lethal dose inside him. That was based on toxicology drawn after his death. So the state has to prove that Mr. Chauvin caused his death. And in order to do that, they have to prove that he was the sole cause. And I don't see how they are going to do that. I want to show you the statute that Mr. Chauvin is charged on with regard to third-degree murder. And here's what it says. Whoever, without intent to effect the death of any person, causes the death of another by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others and evincing a depraved mind, without regard for human life, is guilty of murder in the third degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 25 years. That is a sole cause statute. In other words, the state has to prove that it was Chauvin and Chauvin only who caused his death. I do not see how they can do that when there is evidence that he had a lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Then you come to the issue of whether or not he can get a fair trial based on the fact that the city of Minneapolis burned for days after the event. Are jurors going to be so much in fear of having their city burn a second time that they vote to convict even though the evidence isn't there? I believe that could happen. And I really don't think that you can blame the jurors in that situation for being very human. I think if there's even a hung jury, that there's probably going to be riots in Minneapolis. I hope that isn't the case, but I think that probably will happen. I think it's very unlikely that Chauvin will actually get a fair trial, because a fair trial depends on a jury not feeling pressure, on a jury not worrying about what the outcome is, about a jury doing the right thing for the right reason, and not doing the wrong thing because they're afraid to do the right thing. Of course, all of this provides fodder for appeal, and as an appellate lawyer, I can tell you that this is probably where this case will end up at some point. And what will happen is just this. If there is a conviction, it will be appealed, and eventually it will be overturned, if not by the Minnesota Supreme Court, by the United States Supreme Court. Because it is fundamentally wrong to convict someone on the basis of what the community might do if you don't. So that's where we are with the Chauvin trial and whether or not it's possible for him to get a fair trial. If you found this information useful or informative, I hope you'll take a moment to smash the like button. And perhaps, if you would, click on the subscribe icon and click on the notification bell so that you can be notified every time we post a video. Clicking on the like and subscribe things really help me out because they make it easier for making more videos in the future. And again, if you have a comment, please leave the comment below. Comments also help feed the YouTube algorithm, and I read all of my comments, and I often respond when asked. If you have a question, please feel free to drop it down below. Again, thank you for watching and have a terrific day.